How is it going, folks? Welcome back to Prem. Today is episode number 39. Today is a transfer special. If you missed the playoffs yesterday, you should probably go watch that right now. Of course, we have lots of transfer business to get down to. If we just look at our finances, we have a positive bank balance to start the season for, I think, the first time ever, largely down, of course, to that playoff final. With that in mind, a wage budget of £17,800 is actually fairly significant. Lots of room to upgrade, but when I look at a team that ultimately finished second last year, I don't feel like we need to go too busy rebuilding things today. I suppose my biggest concern, if we just highlight all the players with contracts expiring in the next 12 months, is the fact we have got a few fairly important first-team players leaving us, potentially, and on top of that, there are some players here, the likes of Teo, the likes especially of Gibua, who are probably not going to get work permits if I try and renew their contracts. So ultimately, I need to get rid of them this summer. I think the summer transfer window policy is going to be one transfer in, one transfer out. We're going to try and swap like for like, just get a few upgrades across the pitch. Let's go and see if we can make it happen over the course of this pre-season, shall we? I know lots of you love these episodes, and these are my favourite episodes to record. This is going to be an interesting one, though, this transfer special, because unlike the last few seasons, I look at our performance this year in the league, breaking the record for most goals scored in the Vanarama National League, and I feel like we just need more of the same. And whilst I don't love to trust the star ratings, I think when you look at the options we have on the bench, you look at our players in the starting 11, we actually have quite a lot of quality just across the board. Like I already mentioned, my one big concern is a lot of the European players that we brought in that were given work permits for at least their initial terms at the club. Players like Valentin, players like Gibua, and the fact that I don't really want to lose these guys on freeze. I don't want a repeat situation of the NLBM situation where, well, players either don't have work permits and I need to sell them, or in this case, these players just run down their contracts and won't renew their contracts because, well, that they don't have work permits. So I'm looking at the likes of Gibua, who has already told me he's exploring options at the end of his contract at the end of the year, thinking, if I could even get 650k, that would be rather nice. The issue that I've had, as I have already tried to sell him a little bit, is no one wants to bid on Gibua. Now, one first-team player who does have the work permit situation kind of lingering over his head is Christopher Wu, and I have had an offer. It's worth noting that his transfer value is between 100,000 and 650,000. I offered him out for 650,000 and no one bid on him. I offered him out for 500,000 and Red Star FC bid 115k. And whilst Christopher Wu did play significant minutes for us this year, 15 of his 36 appearances were on off the bench, and he didn't really set the world ablaze. And given the fact that he's on £150 a week, given the fact that we signed him on a free, plus of course that work permit, if we were to sell him for even just £115,000, that would be significant profit. And I think I probably do have to take it unless a larger bid comes in. Elsewhere, you might have noticed one other sale going on. Kyle Farquad, one of a few players running down his contract at the end of this coming season, has already told me he will leave on a free. With that in mind, when Bath came in with a bid, I just kind of had to take it. Of course, this is a man who was a regular fixture of our first team a few years ago. We, of course, signed him from Wimborne Town once upon a time. And whilst he was a very good player as we were in the Southern Premier League South and even the National League South, the reality is, in the National League itself, he just doesn't really have the quality. So one of those players that has, unfortunately, as the club's grown up, kind of been outgrown. With that in mind, I think we're going to let him go. And there are a couple of other players that fall into that similar bracket. I'm looking really at the likes of Will Merry, who has already announced he will leave at the end of his current contract on a free, the kind of player we might look to cash in on. And elsewhere, there was one other player who I think I might have even demoted out of spite. Yes, Charlie Osborne has told me he wants to leave on a free as well. So these are players that I kind of feel like we can replace with similar, if not better, backup options. And ultimately, if I can get just a little bit of cash for them, probably should try and get that. Now, of course, the team 11 that you can see here is the team that started that playoff final, which was, of course, a disappointing result against Dagenham and Redbridge, but ultimately, we weren't blown out the water. We lost 4-2 in the end, but it was a pretty good, even game. So with that in mind, I don't feel like we need to go super crazy. Last year, I felt a lot of pressure to add a load of quality to the team. I think we know this team does have the quality. Maybe when it comes to transfer policy, it's going to be about jumping on the players that become available regardless of positions. If we find a really good player who's going to add some quality, I want to go get them. There is one first-team player who currently doesn't have a contract. Tony Gallagher has not renewed his contract. Therefore, he is on a pay-as-you-go rolling monthly contract on £400 a week. The man has been an okay squad player, a regular fixture of our team now for 4 years, would you believe? But whenever I go and try and negotiate a contract with him, he wants like £800 a week, which I don't think he's worth. He's a player who's probably going to be on the bench this year. That said, if he was to leave, would I trust Perner to play left back for the whole year? Maybe not. I probably would actually look to get a left back in. I think if there's one thing that we learnt last transfer special, it's the fact that we don't need to go out and spend money for the sakes of things. If we can use this pre-season as an opportunity to scout some players, find players that do have perhaps slightly higher wage demands and hope that they drop them as the season kicks off, I'm kind of okay with doing that. We have a healthy bank balance. I have, of course, got a whole load of big friendlies lined up, which are hopefully going to help the finances that little bit more. Hoping we're going to be able to sell out more and more this year as well. Of course, we have a stadium with a capacity of 5,000 seats. That said, if we just look at the average kind of attendances for last year, you can see here, most of the time we were in that kind of 1,500 attendance range. I would love to maintain that, maybe try and get it a little bit higher going into the new year. That's certainly going to be an aim. So to kick things off today, I'm going to try and cash in on a few players. Christopher Wu got that offer from Red Star. I think I'm going to offer him out for a little bit more and just see if anyone bids on him. I'll offer him out for 250k. We're currently stalling the Red Star bid. Obviously, Farquad's on his way out. Gibua, I need to get a bid on, although right now there's no interest in him. Worst case scenario, we keep him around for the year and we lose him on a free at the end of it. Obviously, I'd much rather keep him around because I think he is a very, very good player. But when you look at that value, if I can sell him for even a fraction of it, I probably should do it. I feel like we have been saying this for the last few transfer specials, but keep a close eye on Scott Williams. Blackpool were relegated this most recent season from the Championship. His current value is £1.5 to £3.3 million. Of course, a Welsh international, the centre-back. Formerly our man, we sold him to Blackpool, you might remember, for 235k. He is currently in the last year of his contract. I am desperately hoping that they sell him. If they were to sell him for even kind of £1.5 million, that would be some pretty significant money coming our way that I would quite like. Some not so good news. No interest in Gibua, Valentin, Merry or Osborne. Obviously, Merry and Osborne, I could look to extend their contracts. When it comes to Valentin, obviously, work permits could be an issue. Truth be told, he's not really featured in the team that much, the Frenchman. I don't really want to sell him for absolutely nothing. At the same time, if I could get just a big sell-on clause, I suppose that would be nice. And with Gibua, well, there's just no interest in him. I set an asking price of unspecified. Let's try offering him out for 650. I think I am going to transfer list him as well, because I've not got anything to lose. If I transfer list him and he's unhappy about being transfer listed, I mean, he's already said he's going to explore options at the end of his contract, and I'm not going to be able to renew his contract because he won't get a work permit. Yeah, you know what? We'll just try and get him gone for anything, I think. So I have had a bid for Teo that I am going to accept. It's not exactly the monster offer I was hoping for. Lazio have offered £9,000, which, I'll be honest, is a tad disappointing. Of course, Teo is only a backup goalkeeper. That said, I was hoping we could get a little bit more for him, but I'd rather get something than nothing. First course of action, of course, for pre-season. Get a load of players in on trial and see if any of them are actually any good. I've got to say, by the way, Tom Smith here, oh my word, I feel like I want to replicate his haircut. He is a thing of beauty. He looks like a Canadian lumberjack called Bob. Gianluca Rossi, by the way, has just been released by Barry. Of course, Rossi, rather good player for us back in the day. Perhaps not of the quality he once was. If I try and sign him, he's not going to get a work permit. So the romantic reunion is not going to happen. Now, I could be wrong. I swear Lewis Ferguson used to be an absolutely mad wonderkid in FM. He's 28. He's got 4 caps for Scotland. He was playing for Bologna, where, let's be honest, he didn't really get to play for them much. He then played for Queen of the South. It doesn't look like he's had a load of injuries either. I feel like he used to be really good and now he's really, really meh. I mean, if Gibua is potentially on his way out, could he be the Gibua replacement? I mean, when you look at it like that, maybe less so. But at 28 years old with good determination, he could be a good experienced head. How much does he want a week in wages? He wants to be a fringe player. He wants a non-contract. Can I actually sign this man? I feel like a bit of depth at centre mid wouldn't go amiss, and if I could just pick him up on a contract where maybe the wages aren't so high, but we are at least paying him a good amount of money, if he features in games, that could be mutually beneficial. Maybe I could have got him for less, but I think he's good. I should probably scout him, shouldn't I? Should probably We'll do that. One player we've just managed to pick up on trial is Isaiah Dada Maskol. Now this man, yeah, he's inconsistent. Yeah, he might have issues with injuries. He's 193 centimetres of pure English beef. This man, look at him. 13 strength. Look at these physicals, all in the double figures. The scouts like him. I quite like him. If Wu is going to leave for, how much were we selling Wu for? Like £100,000. Maybe Dada Maskol here can just be the replacement backup centre-back. I do get asked a lot, Jack, what happened to that Welsh guy, Harvey Jones? You know, the guy who was playing in the Welsh Premier League. Well, let me tell you, this man is always up there in the top goal-scoring charts in the Welsh Premier League. If you look at the season preview, he's just always in the media Dream 11. He's very, very good. He'd be a perfect signing for us. He's currently on £30 a week, but no matter what I do, he's never interested in talking to me. Maybe one day he'll change his mind. It'll probably be at a point where he'd no longer be a good player for our first team, but I am still a Harvey Jones enjoyer. I do still call him up every other week just to see if he'd maybe be interested in making the move across the border. I've had no further bids on Christopher Wu. I think I've just got to accept £115,000. It's not the biggest sum of money, but for a player who was on £150 a week, was a backup player this year, and obviously we only had to pay for the work permit last year, it's still not an insignificant amount of money to recoup. So I'm kind of happy about it. I know in real life this guy's actually playing insane for Rennes, starting for their first team. I mean, let's hope in the winter update for Football Manager, he does get an upgrade in his ability and potential, because the fact that he's even ended up playing for us is kind of mental. I really am trying to sell Gibua. Apparently there's lots of teams interested in him, but apparently the wages are an issue, which I find mental when Chesterfield think the wages are an issue. Because if we just look at Chesterfield's team and how much they pay players per week, they have a couple of players on close to £5,000 a week, and yet apparently Gibua has too high a wage demands. I hate Chesterfield so much. Okay, Christopher Wu leaving the club. We get £110,000 added to the overall balance and to the transfer budget, which is pretty nice, to be honest. I'll probably end up putting some of that into the scouting budget in order to have the scouting range on Europe, even just for a week or two, to have a look what's out there. A player who I don't really know what the plan was when we signed him. We thought he might compete in the first team. As the season went on, Morgan Williams just kind of emerged as a more consistent option. And with that in mind, we've just decided to let him go. Good money though, I'm pretty happy about this one. When I do look at the departure of Wu, I do think it opens up an opportunity to maybe try and get a starting centre-back. Quite enjoyed Benjamin last year, obviously. Scored that really important header in the playoff semi-final, but was a consistent player. Morgan Williams, by comparison, has declined a fair bit since he joined the club, to be honest, the 28-year-old. I like his versatility. On the bench, I do think he's a good player. He is the kind of player, though, who, when you look across our starting team, you could potentially look at as a bit of a weak link. So having up the scouting range, I decided to look at players with likely work permits not in the UK and Ireland, and Murat Yilmaz here I got well excited about. Imagine if we could have signed this bloke. Sadly, Borussia Dortmund have already made a bid. He doesn't think we have the financial strength and muscle to match Dortmund, which, I'll be honest, Murat, you're probably right about. The first team's gone from looking a little bit empty to suddenly being full of a load of trialists. I've offered a load of trials to kind of foreign players who have a chance of getting a work permit. There's none that immediately jump out at me. Andreas Doring here is an interesting one because he's either-footed and can play anywhere along the back. I mean, if Gallagher's leaving the club, maybe Vimoj Muntu Wamungu, I hope I've said that correctly, he could be the ultimate left-back replacement alternative option. This man is not a bad little left-back. Fantastic name as well. Not sure how it's going to fit on the back of a shirt, but that's not a problem we need to worry about. Was playing for Montpellier, formerly of PSG's youth team. I actually quite like the look of him. I mean, he doesn't like important matches and he's not very good in the air. But as far as wing-backs go for our level, he's really not that bad. Right, Muntu Wamungu, how much do you want? He wants to be a star player. That scares me immediately. I'm willing to make you a squad player. He wants £1,000 a week. Get me out of here. If you were wondering, by the way, Jack, have you requested to the board that you go pro this year? You know, having just missed out on promotion? I did. It was rejected. So, no going pro this year, sadly. Bad news, Carl Farquhar has rejected an offer from Bath. It's like he just wants to sit here and secure the bag of £300 a week for the next 12 months, which I can't really blame him for. Elsewhere, Teo is leaving the building. He's heading over to Italy to be, I suppose, Lazio's backup goalkeeper. Not really sure why Lazio have signed him. Answers on a postcard if you have any idea, but we do have a bit more money in the bank, and between season ticket sales, some pretty good attendances for these games already, and of course the sales that we've done, our overall bank balance is at £368,000, which is the highest it's ever been. So that's pretty cool. So another player I've got in on trial is Sid Ali Slimani. Fantastic name. This guy is interesting. 19 years old, Algerian, was previously playing for Montpellier. Weird thing here, he had a bid on him which I was getting worried about. The bid for him is from Weymouth, who play in the league below us, and there's actually teams in the National League looking in at this guy. I mean, if we just compare him with Hanous Sekir, you can see not that similar a player, really. Different strengths, certainly, but two players that I think within our team could operate in that similar role. So I was just looking through players who have a work permit likely that weren't, interested in joining us on trial. One man has jumped out at me, Madi Meftahi. This man, 20 years old, was playing for PSG. He looks absolutely mad. I think I'm in love. He could play out on the left wing if we wanted him to. He's 20 years old. He looks absolutely insane. I am concerned about all these expectations he has, but at the same time, I might be willing to pay him £1,000 a week to join us. I think this could be the first £1,000 a week player. How much is he going to want? He does want £1,000. I can give him £950. How much would you pay for this man? I don't know what his negatives are going to be. His mentals are a little bit lacking, but oh my word, he's so good. He's so good in the air too with that jumping reach. He could be the real successor to NLBM. There, I've said it. Naturally, we will send a scout abroad to go and look at him, but I'm going to make an offer now, I think. He wants £1,000. I'm going to try and get him down to 900. I'm going to lock in a 4-year deal as well. That would be a really good long contract to get him to sign. He wants a non-promotion release clause of £2 million. You know what? If we don't get promoted, I'll sell him for £2 million. I can deal with that. This guy looks insane, doesn't he? I think I've just got to throw the kitchen sink at him. I think he's the kind of player that could be the kind of player that just gets us promoted. We've got loads of excess wages. Apparently there's several clubs keen in him, which makes me more nervous. But he's so good. I'm going to give his agent as much money as I can. Can I sneak in maybe a contract extension after promotion? Do I lock it in and risk annoying him? I'm going to gamble. It might not be worth it. I'm just sat thinking, if we get him on a 4-year deal and then we get promoted and there's another 3 years, we would actually have him for long enough that he could take up English nationality if he saw out his whole contract. Oh, he's so good. You know what? 25% promotional wage rise. He really wants the £1,000. I can't give it to him. How about that, mate? That's a very good contract for us and him, I think. Have I got overexcited here? Maddie, I need to compare him to our other strikers. I mean, look at him compared to Brandon Charles. Brandon Charles, just as a little reminder, was top goal scorer in the league. He makes Brandon Charles look like a child. I mean, Brandon Charles, to be fair, does look like a child with his picture, but that's not the point. I feel like I really have now set myself up for heartbreak. There's still other players here that I should probably be looking at, although I don't think we're going to get anyone who gets me as excited as Maddie just did. Have you ever seen a player that can play centre-back naturally and then is accomplished at right wing, and they're the only two positions that they can play? I don't think I have either. Who has trained this man? Who hurt you, Torvald? I'm very sorry for what they've done to you. I don't want to alarm anyone. Saint Etienne have made an offer for Maddie. That probably impacts my ability to sign him, doesn't it, when a Liga team are making a bid? I mean, the dream might be dead. Unless I try and get him to say the line. If I can get him to say, you know the line where he says, my client thinks this is a very acceptable offer, and then the player is guaranteed to sign with you, I could try and make that line happen. How much am I willing to break my wage structure for a man who is probably League One quality? I might live to regret this. I'm going to offer him the biggest contract of all contract offers. I'm going to lower the non-promotion release clause to 1.5 million. Change a few of these other bits around. He's only said everything appears to be in order. I want him to say my client thinks this is a very acceptable offer. Oh, I want this man so badly. If I shift some of the transfer budget into wage budget, can I then offer him... I can then offer him £1,000. I can then offer him more. I mean, if I now get the scout report back and he's injury prone, I am going to feel sad. But I feel like even with this bid here, it won't be enough. You know what? If we get promoted, I'll pay him £1,500 a week. I really can't offer more than this. So if he turns down this, I know in my heart I did everything I could to sign him. You know what? I'm lowering this more. We are going for promotion this year. I'll give you £1 million release clause if we don't get promoted. I feel like he's still going to go to St Etienne and I'm just going to feel sad. So I did get a scout report back on Lewis Ferguson, who has actually agreed to join us. I can just ask for confirmation on this one. Super consistent, loves important matches. Not the greatest player by any means, but as a bit of a depth option on the bench, I think he could almost fill that Harry Kite role for us. Kite has declined a lot in recent years. Lewis Ferguson, undoubtedly an upgrade. I was going to say similar player, I suppose, in terms of the mould that they fulfill. But Ferguson offers a lot more going forward. And for the price we've agreed, it's just a no-brainer. So we're going to ask for confirmation on this one, get him signed up. First signing of the year, Scottish international, 28 years old, Lewis Ferguson, welcome to Guernsey. I'm still trying to sell the likes of Valentin and Gibua. With Valentin, no one wants to actually pay me money for him, so we might just have him to the end of the year and then watch his contract expire. I don't think we're going to get any bids for him. To be fair, not entirely surprising. He's played 8 games of football in the last 2 years. And Gibua, still no interest. I'm kind of hoping that a random team in Italy will stand up and take notice of him and realise that at £400,000 or even £350,000, I'm getting desperate to sell him now, he's probably a bit of a bargain. Okay, some really good news here. Slimani waiting on a work permit. So very, very likely we are going to be picking up this 19-year-old. Phenomenal talent, really good player, yet lacks in the consistency department. But for the wages that we're paying and for, albeit a very small fee of £20,000, I think he's going to offer us something that we don't already have in the backup centre mid department. I mean, I think between him and Lewis Ferguson, an area that maybe lacked depth last year, suddenly has a whole lot of it. Okay, this is interesting. I've been given the option to sell Scott Williams' contract clause. He has had a new contract signed, it looks like, with Blackpool to 2031. Yeah, this contract was signed a few days ago. He is currently valued at, let me ask about availability, 2.7 to 5.4 million pounds. Now, will Blackpool ever sell him for that price? I don't know, but I do have the option to sell the clause for £475,000. Now, it's a 30% sell-on clause, so with that in mind, if I wanted to receive this kind of money, they would need to sell him for in excess of 1.5 million, which they might do, but I don't know if they're likely to do anytime soon. Oh, should I just sell that clause? £479,000 would be nice. Do I think his value is going to go down in the next year or so? I'm kind of hoping that Blackpool are going to use him regularly. He played a lot of games in League One last year, and Blackpool have just been relegated from the Championship. So with that in mind, he is a player who might find himself playing more and more first-team football. And having just signed a new contract now, I suppose the odds on him being sold at some point do go up a little bit. You know what? I don't think I need the money right now. I think I am better off waiting and hoping for more. I hope I don't live to regret it, because I'll level with you, close to £500,000 right now would be rather nice. But you know what? No, not going to sell it. I'm going to stay strong. Have just got the scout report back on Maddie, by the way. He is a consistent performer. There's no immediate concerns. Of course, we've not got full knowledge on him from scouting yet. Oh, he's so good. I need him. If he goes to St Etienne, I'm going to feel really sad. But I feel like it's likely he goes to St Etienne. So right now, our pre-season prediction is 9th place. That is higher than it was last year, so clearly our squad is rated a little bit. In terms of the teams relegated, it was actually Morecambe who are predicted right now to finish down in 21st, and Port Vale. So in terms of the teams that got relegated from League 2, feels like it was 2 pretty weak teams, 2 teams who may not even be challenging towards the top. That's got to give us a bit of confidence to win the league this year, I think. The scouting has been finished. It turns out Meftahi is a very, very good footballer who we should sign. I am shocked. Okay, Sid Ali Slimani is joining the club, £400 a week. Think he's a really, really good depth option for us. Yeah, really, really good player, this guy. Potentially a League One player down the line, which at 19 years old makes me feel good. 3-year deal with an optional 2-year extension that we can trigger. And you know what? I'm just going to trigger it right away. Maybe that's premature. He's now here for 5 years. I hope he's actually good, otherwise it's going to be a little bit awkward that he's here to 2033. Right now, I'm just sat waiting to see what happens with Maddie. The worst thing about all of this is, I know that I've offered everything I can for him. I've offered him an outrageous contract that I really would not offer anyone else. So if he turns it down, I couldn't have done anything differently. I know he's going to St Etienne. Why am I even getting my hopes up? Valentin still getting bids of absolutely nothing for him. No, thank you. Elsewhere, I've had an interesting offer for Benjamin. Now, Benjamin is a very, very good centre-back. Do I think he's irreplaceable? No. Do I think he'd be good enough for League Two if we were to get promoted? Probably not. That said, he probably is our best centre-back at the moment. But Carlisle have made a bid of £49,000. And there is a small part of me that is actually, considering it a little bit. I wonder if I could get a little bit more money out of them. Like, this might be too cheeky. What if I ask for not 750,000, that would be mental. £75,000 in 6 months, and I want a percentage of next sale. I feel like they're going to turn this down, but I don't really need to sell him. And if I was going to sell him, it would have to be for something a bit like this. Let's see what they say. They hate me. Benjamin thinks I rejected a acceptable offer. The money wasn't right on it, mate. I'm a professional, so I'll leave it here. He hates me. He hates it. I might need 2 new centre-backs at this rate. I might have found the non-league centre-backs of dreams. Toby Amol. I mean, this man, look how quick he is. He's got 16 jumping reach. Ignore the fact he can't head a ball and his defending is questionable. He is absolutely rapid. I've done all this bigging up of him, and then I've actually looked at his history and realised he's been pretty average everywhere he goes. But is it mad that I kind of like the look of him? He could play left-back for us, and we could just have him as a secret weapon on set pieces. He wants to be a star player. He wants to play as a no-nonsense centre-back. That concerns me. You're an Impact sub, mate. He wants £2,500 a week. Never mind. So one centre-back that has popped up on my radar, was just looking at players ranked by world reputation, is Henri Leninen. Finnish player, 21 years old, loads of caps for Finland's youth team. Not the quickest player, but 17 jumping reach. And he actually looks like he could be quite a good, interesting little centre-back option. I'm curious to see how much he wants. He's played the last 3 years in the National League for Aldershot. He actually got an average rating of 7.09 last year, which is pretty good for this level. So a player who's proven in this division. I'm going to see if I can get him as a squad player. He thinks he's a star player. That scares me immediately. He wants £1,000 a week. I can't offer him that. Also, his agent fiercely dislikes me. Why do you hate me? Who are your other clients that I've messed around in the past? Clearly, I've hurt this bloke in a previous life and I don't remember it. Also, he's got a lot of clients on his books, hasn't he? Are any of these any good? Let's just have a look. Divin Mubama. Oh my word. Man's got 14 acceleration, 16 pace. I need him. How much? He doesn't want to join us. As a semi-pro team, there are still a lot of players that just don't want to move down south to play for us. I can't actually attract any players based in England, north of London, which is difficult. That does make things hard. I just want Maddie, everyone. I just want Maddie. If we get Maddie in, we are sorted for the year. £4,500. He had no hesitation accepting their offer over ours. A straightforward decision. The wage we offered him was disappointing. Can I now loan him? I can't pay £4,500, but I'll make him a star player if you loan me him for a year. Maddie Meftahi, we hardly knew ye. I feel sad. You know what? I'm not getting any monetary bids for Valentine. I'm going to offer him out for nothing with a percentage of next sale of 50%. Maybe someone will accept that. Just anything you sell him for in the future, we'll take half of it. I think that's a fair deal. And finally, some clubs have taken that offer. Okay, they can all talk to him. That's probably another player I need to replace, but I mean, it shouldn't be too hard to replace a man who's played 8 games in the last 2 years. I'll level with you. From a recruitment point of view, based on all the players I've got on trial, players that I've been looking at, players that are actually available and that we've scouted, there doesn't seem to be that much quality this year. We might not even end up signing many players. I might be short of players at the start of the year. I mean, would this be a squad capable of starting the year? I've just realised I've only got Sean McDonald in goal. Do we have another goal? I should probably get a backup goalkeeper before the season starts. Let's go do that now. Okay, looking through goalkeeper options. Doesn't need to be anyone great. There was a couple of players I looked at. Ben Dudzinski, who looks okay, to be fair, at 31 years old. But I think the player I'm actually going to go with here is Willie Muir. This guy was playing for a lower for the last few years in the Scottish 3rd Division. Doesn't look too bad by any means, but at 35 years old, he's not going to get any better. Has some fairly well-rounded technicals. Happy to be a backup. Haven't actually checked how much he wants yet. But you know what? £200 a week for a backup. I'll give him a big appearance fee. Very unlikely he'll play unless we get injuries. I think that this is fine as a backup. I will just scout him just to make sure there's nothing untoward. If he's inconsistent, injury-prone, or hates important matches, I might reconsider, because there's no shortage of goalkeeping options out there. Okay, Tony Gallagher was at risk of running down his contract. In fact, technically it had already been run down. He's actually lowered his wage demands now, so I'm hoping we can actually come to some kind of agreement with him to sign him on a deal. He is currently on, I think, £400 a week. Yeah, so if we could get him on the exact same contract he was already on, I'll take that. He was holding out for double that. So the fact that he's now a month into pre-season realised, maybe I just want to stay around here, that's kind of nice. That is one less player I need to worry about replacing. What I will say is, this is the current squad. It is a little bit more bare bones than I would like. I do say all of that. If I just, tick the button for players in on trial, you quickly realise there's loads of players in on trial that we could possibly sign as squad options. Will I sign any of them as squad options? I'm not entirely sure yet. I still like the idea of signing Dada Maskell, even though he's injury-prone and inconsistent. I do need him to lower his wage demands, though. So a player who's popped up on my radar, he was in the Welsh Premier League Media Dream 11, is Trey George. He's actually a centre mid who can play centre attacking mid and is accomplished at striker. We are a little bit light in the striking department, and with 12 jumping reach, he can win the ball in the air for sure, but his physicals are very, very good. If we just compare him with Brandon Charles, I'm not expecting him to be the next Brandon Charles, but I don't think there's a world of difference in quality. Very similar age. Star player on £140 at the moment at his current club. You can see his wage demands for us aren't going to be too extreme. Hoping that maybe we can get him to lower his playing time a little bit and hopefully accept he's not going to be an Ungarnch. But depending on how much he asks for, which seems to be a reasonable amount here, I think he could be the go-to super sub kind of striking option. Last year we didn't have a great plan B striker on off the bench. Very often we were bringing in Will Merry. And in fact, if we compare Trey George with Will Merry here, who of course was our go-to backup striking option last year, you can kind of see why it might be in my interest to bring in Trey George. I think he's a good little player, could play centre mid, could play as a striker. I know I have just promised him a key star player role. More often than not, he will be player number 5 on the bench. That go-to attacking option, which, I mean, if we just look at our current striking options, when it comes to bench players, there's not a load of them. I mean, there they are. Arconte, Charles, Yor, then Tyler Forbes. Obviously, Arconte starts, Yor and Charles start. So we probably need at least 1 or 2 new faces here. Okay, good news. We have got a backup goalkeeper. Willie Muir is going to be joining us. Or as I've been calling him Willie, it's Willie. He's like a sheep. I am going to delay it just because I've realised we've not actually finished scouting him yet. But for £200 a week for a backup goalkeeper, don't think you can really go wrong. I do definitely feel like we're hitting a ceiling in kind of terms of the current quality of player I can attract whilst being a semi-pro team. Teams and players, they're just not willing to either loan players to me or even sell players to me, and the players themselves don't want to join and train part-time with where we currently are. It's a mega frustrating situation to find ourselves in. It is leading me more and more to thinking, should I just sell the Scott William clause and then try and request do we go pro? I suppose the downside here is, because I requested going professional right at the start of kind of pre-season, we have more money than we did then, but it also means that at least right now, I don't even have the option to ask to go pro. It really is limiting the amount of players that we have the feasibility to sign, because it's only really players on the south coast of England that are even willing to join us. And with that pool of players to get out in the National League, it's tough anyway. Simply put, there's no defenders. I feel like the defence was an area I wanted to strengthen. There isn't really the ability to do that. This guy's interesting. He plays for a team without a badge. He's been thrown up by my scouts. Is he actually any good? I mean, he doesn't look terrible at 19, but probably not quite good enough for us. I love the fact that as I'm discussing the fact that I need to sign some defenders, I'm getting distracted by attackers. I am fully aware of the irony of all of this. Ross Marshall here looks like an interesting option. Was playing for Torquay last year in the Vanarama National League South. Got promoted with them. A couple of years before that, he had been playing in the National League. And when you look at his performances at our level, they've not been very good. It is tricky because on the one hand, last year we scored a load of goals and conceded a load of goals. But I don't necessarily think that was down to the personnel, certainly not in its entirety. I think a lot of our defensive issues just come from the type of football that we play. And in the current match engine of Football Manager, you are rewarded for playing attacking football. You are way better off, at least with this quality of players, going out and attacking, rather than trying to build any kind of defensive foundation. I think it says a lot that Dagenham and Redbridge, who conceded more than us and scored less than us, finished just 2 points behind us. I think the approach that we have to get out of this league is not a bad one by any means. You can see we had the most goals for. Dagenham weren't far behind. In terms of goals conceded, we weren't very good defensively, but I don't necessarily feel like you have to be amazing defensively to get out of this league. And with the quality of player that we have, I do feel like we're just kind of stuck in this rut where ultimately we do have to approach things with the "we're going to score one more goal than you" mantra. So Dagenham and Redbridge have made an offer for Will Merry, which is an interesting one. Will Merry wants this move. He's already announced he's leaving at the end of his current contract. I'm going to be a little bit cheeky here and just try and get a wee bit more money for him if we can. Profit of next sale, let's make it 15%. Dagenham and Redbridge very keen to only pay £5,000. I want the 20% profit, Dagenham. Dagenham don't want to give me it. Can we go back to the 6,500? They really want to offer 5,000 for Will Merry. We're going to lose him on a free otherwise. I think it's probably just worth cashing in on him, to be honest. He's on £400 a week, which probably is an overpay for the quality that he offers us. Trey George, I think, is on the verge of signing for us as well. You can see, looking at the kind of scout report here, looking very solid, lacks consistency, but good in important matches. Doesn't have that coverage of the wide areas that Will Merry had. If Valentin and Merry both leave us, that definitely is an area of the pitch we are going to need to look at. We are going to be looking a little frail when it comes to players, I think, in the wider attacking midfielder areas. But I do think that we could start the season and be okay with the current squad. And of course, we have got the money to improve the current squad. The overall balance is now at over £400,000. These pre-season friendlies, they really are helping us make some money. And if you were wondering, by the way, the start of the season is in 2 weeks' time. So not much time to get stuff done now. So we did ask for this last year. I'm going to try again. I would like a senior affiliate. I think it could really help us get some players in on loan. Neil doesn't like loans. He doesn't like Zealand either on the loan song, apparently. I'm going to really beg him here. This is really important. Please, the fans are behind me. After all this I've done for the club. Okay, well, bad news, everyone. We're not getting an affiliate this year either. We didn't even get as far as last year where we couldn't find one. There's just no interest from the board to actually get one this time around. Good news. First defender signing of the year. It's Tony Gallagher re-signing his contract for 2 more years. So not even a new signing. But you know what? He's here for another year and he has been fairly reliable. So I think we should be happy about that one. So I have had a little bit of progress in the last 48 hours on ins, outs, and also some new contracts being sorted out. You can see here, we had a whole host of players with contracts expiring at the end of this season. So I've ended up renewing a fair few of them, actually. Some pretty important players here that we were at risk of losing. They've all been given deals that they're happy with. Hopefully they're all going to sign on the dotted line. And whilst that's been going on, if we just look at transfers, you can see we have made some new additions. Willie Muir has joined us as a goalkeeper. Love the fact he's super consistent. Don't really like the fact he hates big matches, but you know what? As a backup goalkeeper, I think he's perfectly adequate. I think he can do a job at this level, which is absolutely the main thing. Elsewhere, Trey George has now joined us. Really like the look of this guy. Think he could be a really good impact attacking player for us to have, but also the kind of player who can slot into the midfield if needed. And the other player I've signed, one who I've not talked about yet today, Christian Opoku. I didn't think I was going to sign this guy, but he wanted £40 a week is what he wanted. I don't know where 400 came from. But looking at this guy, he was playing for Bournemouth's academy. Was released by them. You can see by his value, clearly people think he's a rather good player. Super consistent performer, room to grow, very, very good physicals as well. He is a left winger, and I don't really want to have to play him at any point, but if we are a little bit light in the wide attacking midfielder positions, he could be promoted from the under-21s to just be a squad player in an emergency. On the outs, you can see here, Valentin has left us on a free, but there is that sell-on clause. Should he ever move on for some money, we'll get a good portion of that. And the other player who's left us is Will Merry, who actually ended up going to Northampton rather than Dagenham and Redbridge. This man, a good player, someone who we've relied on a lot, but I don't feel like we're losing a massive piece of the puzzle. He's been a long-term impact sub for us, 22 appearances on off the bench last year, just 7 starts. The numbers he's put in have never really been mind-blowing, and with him being in the last year of his contract, kind of relieved just to get a little bit of cash for him. So I think if the season was to start tomorrow, this would be the team that we go with, which oddly enough has not changed since last season. There just hasn't been the quality out there, at least right now, that I can realistically sign. Like we learnt last year, the longer pre-season goes on, as you get into the new season, players' lower wage demands, new targets become available, and I think we are going to be relying on just some procedural updates and upgrades to the team throughout the year. This is a team that proved itself last year. It can absolutely do it at this level. On the bench, of course, we have now got Slimani, who is a good little creative centre midfielder option. Trey George also sits there alongside Tanner Jones. I realise we've still got this big Welsh contingent in the team that we've had for a very, very long time, but I do actually really like the look of Tanner Jones and Trey George. I'm going to get them muddled up all the time this year. These two as kind of 2 impact sub options I think could be very, very useful this year. You can see they can play a whole host of positions, and I'm very, very interested to see how Trey George gets on, because I could see him making a name for himself and potentially even ending up starting games as a striker this year. I mean, naturally, our wage spend hasn't really gone up that much over pre-season. We have a lot more money in the overall bank balance. Transfer budget is healthy. There is money out there to go and sign players, but I don't feel a need right now to go out and sign some players for the sake of it. If we look at our overall team, definitely a bit more depth needed in the wide area, but if this was my team to start the year, that'd be fine. Of course, Benjamin is unhappy. I'm hoping we can turn him around, but like I said earlier, I don't necessarily know if he is a League 2 quality player, so if the right offer came in, maybe we would let him go. And elsewhere, Gibua, no one's bid on him during pre-season, so we might end up losing him at the end of the season. He might be a useful squad player this year, but of course we've already brought in the likes of Slimani, the likes of Lewis Ferguson as well, who I think is a really underrated bit of business. I think this guy could be a very, very useful kind of box-to-box midfielder for us at this level. Love the fact he's a super determined player. Hopefully someone who will end up being a bit more of an influential player in the dressing room, especially with his fairly good reputation. Given the fact that we're a week and a half away from the start of the season, I think we're going to leave things here for today. I've been sat recording for quite a while. I have really tried to have a hunt through players, but I don't really believe in signing players for the sake of it, for the sake of a video title or whatever, at least not at this level. When you're in the Premier League and you have money to burn, then you end up signing some washed old players so you can stick their faces on the thumbnails. Then it's acceptable. What I will leave you with, though, is a question, and I'd love to know your thoughts on this in the comments. Scott Williams, we have a 30% profit sell-on. We sold him for 230k. Should I be cashing in this clause? He's just signed that new deal, just as a little reminder. We could take just shy of £500,000 for him. Now, in order for that kind of money to be made through the clause itself, he'd need to move on for about, I think, £1.7 million, which, I mean, when you look at his value, when you consider he's in League One, I really want to believe that he will go for that kind of money in the next few years. Of course, his current contract now has 3 years left to run on it. So worst case scenario, maybe we sell on the clause for slightly less. But I don't know. My heart says I don't need the money right now. I can't even request to go professional. There's no guarantee that in selling Scott Williams' clause, we'd be able to go professional. And with that in mind, I think it's probably just more likely to be worth more down the line. But you can let me know what you think. Not the most eventful of pre-seasons, not the most transformative pre-seasons when it comes to our squad either, but I think we can all agree last year was a pretty good display. I'm happy. There's lots of green links between all our players. If we play like we did last year, especially after we switched back to the 4-2-4, we should be in and amongst the Pigeons at the top of the table and hopefully fighting for the title. If you have enjoyed today's episode, please do drop a like on the video. Next time out, we are going to be starting season number 7. Games that we've got, by the way, Boreham Wood, who I think we've already played in a Jack Dozen away day. With that in mind, Torquay away is a game we're going to look forward to doing. They were promoted just this year. They have some very good players in their team. Henry Cartwright, their key player, was actually someone I looked at, and I mean, you can tell from things here, he is quite good. Unfortunately, I couldn't sign him last season. Our 3rd season in the Vanarama National League awaits. I hope you guys are excited for it. I will be back tomorrow for that. And until next time, take it easy. It's me, Jack, and I'll see you in a bit. I'm out.